CrossFit is not a fun sport to watch, but it does have some things that make it enjoyable. So here are some of those things and how they could be implemented in the future to make CrossFit a little bit more fun. Running Isabel from the 2025 CrossFit Games was fun because everybody was all right there together and it made for an exciting race. If they want to make CrossFit more fun to watch, purposefully program things that are going to make it for a more exciting race. With one caveat, it's also fun to see a race that is not close at all. For example, whenever Matt Fraser was just walking all over everybody and making it look super easy, that is a fun little tidbit to a story that can exist within an event that's not a close race. So if you want CrossFit to be more fun, purposefully program things that are going to make either a super close race or you're going to see a lot of separation. But everybody coming in 20 seconds after each other in a 5-minute workout is not that fun to watch. If you want it to be fun to watch, make it super close or super far. Okay, next, I've seen people beat around the bush for this one or talk about specific examples of it, but it's never really been talked about specifically. And that is the CrossFit Games need to be relatable to the people who are watching it, whether that's someone who doesn't do CrossFit or someone who does do CrossFit. For example, at the 2017 CrossFit Games, they had Heavy 17.5, which was just a heavier version of an open workout that happened just a few months before. So everybody who does CrossFit had done 17.5 just a few months earlier. If you're one of the 385,000 people that did the open that year, you're watching that and you know how they feel. You know what you felt like when you were doing it. It just makes it a little bit more interesting if you've got something to hold on to like that. In fact, I almost wouldn't even mind if they used some version of an open workout every year at the games. I mean, you've got 15 events or whatever that you do at the games. Just go ahead and throw in an exact open workout from that year or a little bit of a souped up version of it because it's just more fun for people to watch if everybody's done it before. Another thing that goes along with this is people who don't do CrossFit, things that they can relate to. So something like that 1 mile run in 2024 was super cool because then we got to see, oh, how fast can a games athlete run a mile? And watching Ricky Garrard go sub 5 is really cool. And you could tell almost anybody, anywhere, hey, this CrossFitter can run a sub 5-minute mile. And they can relate to that and they can have an understanding of that. And it's just going to get them a little bit more interested in it than if I go up to some random person, I'm like, hey, did you hear Ricky Garrard can do friendly Fran and blah, blah, blah? That's not going to mean anything to them, but they have some relatability, something they can relate back to. Almost everybody's done a mile run, whether it's in gym class or whatever. So doing things that are relatable to people is going to bring more viewers in and make it a little bit more fun to watch. Another example of this that I've heard talked about before is the NFL Combine. I know so many people who could rattle off numbers that they've heard at the NFL Combine, whether it's 40 time or leap or bench press, whatever they do at the NFL Combine, that you could just have some version of that at the CrossFit Games. It doesn't have to be the NFL Combine. It could be the NBA Combine. It could be some conditioning test from another sport. It could be the beep test that everybody used to do in gym class. These are fun ways where you could bring in like a relatability aspect to it, and it's going to make it a lot more fun than some random workout that nobody's ever seen before. So sprinkling in some relatability for CrossFitters, non-CrossFitters, and everybody else in between is going to make the CrossFit Games more fun. Next up, this one people get caught up in because they don't want to stray away from classic CrossFit, but there are ways to do this without straying, and that is novelty. Novelty of movement, novelty of workout format, novelty of rep scheme, whatever it is, just adding some novelty to an event can make it a lot more fun to watch. An extreme example would be a brand new movement. Like, do you remember the sandbag clean from 2022 more, or do you remember the Olympic lifting total from 2023 more? Obviously, everybody probably remembers the sandbag clean more just because it was so novel and interesting. And I think us as CrossFitters, we all just kind of crave that novelty. And so playing into that in whatever way you can is going to make it that much more interesting to watch. One of the concerns that people have with novelty is when they hear novelty, they think of, oh, backwards, upside down, handstand walking with dumbbells on your feet. But there's an infinite amount of other ways you could get novelty or even just subtle novelty without making a huge deal out of it or making it super gimmicky. For example, 2-2-2-3 intervals from the 2017 CrossFit Games now kind of seems like a base workout format. Like a lot of people know that and have done that. But when it came out, it was actually very new. You have 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, 3 on. And you had some buy-in plus amount of work that was the goal to complete. I mean, that is a very unique format of workout, and it's just so subtle. There's no gimmicky movements, there's no crazy thing, but it's novel, and it adds a little bit of a story and a little bit of something to it. Fibonacci sequence from also the 2017 games. He used the Fibonacci sequence as the rep scheme. Again, just a subtle little thing, but it adds just a little bit of something to make it more interesting to watch. Another little tricky thing you can do to make CrossFit more fun to watch, and I think CrossFit actually already does a great job at this, but that is the storytelling of the event happening on the field. There's a few parts to this, some that CrossFit do really well, and some that I think they're a little bit lacking on. One of those is horizontal movements. This is one they do really well. CrossFit already uses this all the time, and it makes for a great visual of actually watching the event, whether it's in person or online. Just moving yourself from one end of the floor to the other. We've seen this done with chest pieces across the floor. We've seen it with moving barbells across the floor. We've seen it with doing burpees across a bunch of boxes and moving your way down. We've seen it with lunges to the finish. This is a super good way to just show the race a little bit more. Another thing similar to this is the equipment itself or the layout of the workout. A good example of this would be Strongman Sphere from 2017. They had those huge, really cool looking logs. They've had cool vests in the past. They've had a number of stylistic things that just make it cooler to watch. Another version of this is the setting of the workout itself. So an example of that would be the Capitol from 2022, where they finished the workout walking up the Capitol steps in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, that's just a cool visual in itself. It doesn't have to be these huge grandiose things, but there's ways you could implement stuff in the event that just make it a little bit more visually appealing to watch. And lastly, with the visual story, the beauty of the movement. A thruster is so much more engaging and fun to watch than somebody sitting on a stationary bike. A muscle up, watching the timing and the accuracy and the movement patterns is so much more fun to watch than someone sitting on a rower. I mean, my mom is 62 years old, and she'll walk around the house sometimes and she'll be like this. Those movement patterns are ingrained in our brain, and watching people perform them well reinforces that in our own brains and is more fun than just watching somebody do some lame, dumb movement. The biggest thing that I think CrossFit is missing that other sports have is the unpredictability aspect of it. If you watch the NBA, on any night, some player could just pop off and score 40 points for no reason. You don't even know who that person is. Just because they had a good night, they got in the flow, they were shooting well. The same thing happens in the NFL. A crazy catch will win you the game, and you'll go to the Super Bowl because of some crazy off-chance thing that didn't look like it was going to happen. The unpredictability. CrossFit does not have this. It's the same people winning every year. Every time you go into the season, you know who's going to do well. Every time you go into workout, you know who's going to do well in that exact workout. It's pretty predictable as a sport compared to other sports for sure. So one thing is to add in some unpredictability where we can in the sport. So the goal with this would be to have people slip up, have somebody have a crazy day, or have somebody get into a flow, something like that. So I got a few ways you could do this. I've already talked about a few of these on a video in my main channel, but here are a few more. So you could choose your own adventure. They did this in 20.5. It was like, here's what you have to complete it in any order you want to. There was kind of one strategy that almost everybody followed, but you could write a million workouts with this same thing of complete this however. We haven't had one of those at the games, I think ever, but they would be really fun to watch if you had it programmed right to where there was some serious debate about what should go in what order. And that would make a super fun watch, especially if you saw people using wildly different strategies. And I don't know why every workout just has to be 4 time. There's a million different ways you could do something like this. It'd be fun to see. Elimination style events, we've talked about this before. You mess up a little bit, you miss out on a lot of points. The way they've done these brackets before, if you mess up early on in the bracket, you lose out big time. You can have a slip up, you can have something like that to where you're going to lose out. I like elimination style for that reason of it adds a little bit of unpredictability to the sport. Finally, another one would be forcing people to go unbroken on certain things. If you have a workout that finishes with 20 unbroken toes to bar, you're going to have a little bit of jockeying to see who's going to hop up onto the bar first, who's going to take a risk, who's going to play it back, does somebody break? It could add so much drama. And some people, when I said that on my last video, were like, oh, that's just manufacturing drama. Who cares? Half of every other sport purposefully manufactures drama. If you can do that and it still be a reasonable training training adaptation, a reasonable because I do have requirements to go unbroken in my training sometimes because it's a good thing for training. So if you can do that in training, why aren't you doing it at the games, especially with how much drama it could potentially manufacture? So those are all the workout formats, whatever. Now we're going to go on to things that would make the sport more interesting outside of actually watching. Again, I don't really care about the athletes' dogs. I don't care about the athletes' personal lives until I've built a connection with that athlete through our mutual interest that is CrossFit. But before that, I have no interest in their dog or their personal life or whatever. The only thing I have in common with this random person on my screen is our interest in CrossFit. So you have to use CrossFit to then get me invested in them. CrossFit has just been trying to skip the common interest part and just show everybody these people's dogs. No, our interest with them is CrossFit. Start with that, lead into the rest. And so many people in the CrossFit world have been just saying, oh, we want more about the athletes, more about the athletes. No, you want CrossFit athletes. The reason we were interested in Matt Fraser is because he always talked about, oh, I'm living in my mom's basement just training my butt off. We weren't interested in because he talked about his dog. Maybe we became interested in his dog because of our mutual connection, which then grew into something more. But it all has to start with freaking CrossFit. So my point is here, CrossFit needs to tell the CrossFit story. Everything needs to be CrossFit centered, not dog centered. All right, lastly, the emphasis needs to return to the methodology of CrossFit. Emphasize why we do these movements. Emphasize constantly varied functional movements performed at a high intensity. Emphasize these things through the names of the workouts, the videos that you post on your YouTube or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, through the commentary that happens at the games. If you look at the difference between the old CrossFit Games documentaries and the CrossFit Games documentaries now, the CrossFit Games documentaries now are like a recap of the event. Before, they would like almost explain the whole methodology, talk about why CrossFit, talk about why these movements. They're like, oh, we're doing this movement because it provides this adaptation, and we're doing this because of this. And if you think that you're the fittest, you can go ahead and sign up for the Open, but I guarantee you're not going to beat Rich Froning. They used to be saying stuff like that. Now they're like, Justin Medeiros got 400 points after 4 events. And it's like, sick, dude. Like, this is one thing I always say. I do not care about functional fitness. I care about CrossFit. If CrossFit did not have the methodology behind it, I would never, ever, ever, ever watch the CrossFit Games. I only watch the CrossFit Games because of the methodology behind it. I know why those movements. I know why that movement combination. I know why people train like this. I know everything behind it is what makes CrossFit fun. I don't give a crap about functional fitness. If you want to see really interesting programming, go look at the 2017 CrossFit Games. There was so much in there that are just mind-blowingly more interesting than the 2025 CrossFit Games. And I want a reminder, CrossFit did not grow because it's fun to sit down and watch. So all of these people who are trying to grow CrossFit into this sport that fans just sit down and watch are on the wrong path. CrossFit grew because of the methodology behind it. Oh, and finally, whatever you do, do not make the rep schemes look like this. It's absolute garbage.